We are live and we are on Yonkers Voice, and our guest today is Shatika Parker. Shatika, nice to see you again. It has been a few years since our last. Exactly. I think you were one of the very first interviews on Yonkers Voice.
Really?
Not the first, but one of the very first.
Okay, well that makes me feel good.
And it feels like it was like a month ago.
I know, right? Time is flying.
Yes,
Yeah.
that's right.
Mm-hmm.
Shatika, thank you. Thank you for coming by. Thank you for making yourself available. You know, Yonkers Voice, contrary to what lots of people think, Yonkers Voice is not my voice.
Mm-hmm.
Yonkers Voice is a platform where our voices are amplified and people hear what is of concern to the people of Yonkers.
Mm-hmm.
And people of Yonkers want to know who is who and why are they running. Okay? And I'm sure that you're not running because you're happy with the status quo. Would it be fair to say?
Absolutely, of course.
So tell us why you're running and what do you see that needs to change and how you're going to accomplish that. But don't give me too long answers because we want to keep moving. I'm talking about all the subjects.
Of course, of course. So, hi everybody, my name is Shatika Parker, and like Bruce said, I'm running. I'm running for Yonkers City Council's 1st District, and there's a lot of reasons why I'm running. Aside from being born and raised in Yonkers, the 1st District is what I embody. All of the struggles, all of the success, all of the day-to-day, activities, all of the growing up, going to school here, etc. It really is something that I have been, a part of my entire life. But it's not just about me living here, right? It's not just about me raising my daughter here. I have a 2-year-old daughter who I'm proud to be raising here. It's not just about that. In addition to that, I have government and education experience that I believe allows me to have a very unique lens, right? In the conversations that are happening behind closed doors, when we're coming to the table making decisions about the residents of Yonkers, specifically of the 1st District, I think it takes a special person who has lived experience, career experience, educational experience, to be able to wean in on those conversations and be representative, because that's what it is, right? Representative government of the people of the district. So, born and raised here, went to school, have a degree in political science, and I've also worked in government for the last 6 years.
So, Shatika, would it be fair for me to say that you understand the problems of the 1st District? Because
Absolutely.
one thing is running for the position without understanding the problems, and another thing is running for a position fully understanding the problems and having solutions for those problems.
Absolutely.
Because very often people talk about issues. We can all talk about issues.
All day long.
All day long. What we need is solutions for those issues.
Absolutely.
So what are the biggest issues that you think that, don't go too far because otherwise what am I doing here? Okay, so we can go back and forth. So give me 2 or 3 priority 1 issues that if Shatika Parker is elected, you're going to be tackling those issues from the get-go.
Sure. So right off the top, housing. You just mentioned it's the difference between somebody running for the position and just knowing a little bit about the subject, but really being able to understand the subject, right? So when we talk about housing, I've lived in almost every type of housing you can think of in the city. I've lived in project housing, municipal housing. I've lived in Section 8 housing. I've even lived under the...
Shatika, I got to cut you off. I have to cut you off. I have to cut you off because I just felt this urge. I felt this urge because I have to let the secret out.
What's the secret?
The secret is Off the Hook is the best restaurant in Yonkers. But guess what, guys? It's not just about fish, as the name implies. They have soul cuisine. They have great happy hours from Wednesday to Sunday, 4 to 7 p.m. This is like a secret in town. No longer, because we spoke about it.
Absolutely.
Okay, so come on down here, guys. Come here, have a great seafood or steak if you desire. Mix and mingle, make new friends. I could show you around, but I cannot turn the camera, but this is a beautiful place. Family-oriented. Come on down. So you thought I was going to say something else?
I didn't know what you was going to say, because, listen.
Housing.
Housing. That's the housing. So lived in every type of housing you can possibly think of, and being able to live through those types of housing, it provides, again, a different lens. It's different than just reading what the housing is on paper versus having lived about it. It's also different versus, you know, reading it, living it, and then being a part of conversations of decisions that is being made about it. And that's something that I can, you know, I can provide to the residents of the first district. Education. I have a 2-year-old daughter who, God's willing, is going to be attending Yonkers Public Schools soon. And I want to be, if I can, a part of the differences that is happening within our education system, right? Every year we talk about record education funding. But what some people don't know is, as long as they give you $1 more this year than they gave you last year, we can call it record funding. What are we really providing to our kids? Are we really giving record funding? And how do we creatively come up with ways to inject funds in our school district so that our kids can benefit? Small businesses, for those of you who don't know, I have a company, it's called Parker Consulting Company, and it assists small and growing businesses with resources and, you know, consulting services around growing their businesses. Many businesses I work with in Yonkers, Black and minority-owned businesses, need more support. They need more direct support to be able to grow their businesses and keep their businesses here in the city of Yonkers, and that's something that, you know, I want to work on. So you asked for 3.
That is something that we always talk about, and that's why I have an hashtag that says actions, not words. Let's do more than just talk about it. Let's support our local businesses. People like Shatika, other small businesses, we all talk about supporting, but it goes no further than just talking. We need actions to those words, guys. Actions.
Absolutely.
Education, extremely important. Many of us don't understand what this formula means.
What is what?
The formula.
Okay.
You know, the formula that, you know, the Yonkers gets their funds from.
Yeah.
We hear everyone is talking about, but if I ask the people on streets of Yonkers, do you know what that is?
Yeah.
Do you have a concept?
I barely understand what the formula is, and now let's break it down, right? When we talk about formula, we're talking about the formula that New York State uses to distribute funds to school districts around the state. So I'm assuming that's the same formula you're discussing, right?
That is what I'm talking about.
And as much as it is very important for us to talk with our state representatives and work with our state representatives to bring that foundation aid to its full potential and figure out how Yonkers, who is one of the poorest cities in a very wealthy county, right? That's our disadvantage. Because of that, we get the short end of the stick when it comes to finances for our education. But I would also say that it's up to the Yonkers City Council and the locality to figure out how we get more funds to our students. Yes, it's important to go to Albany and speak before people to plead and, you know, make our case for education funds, but what can we do here in the city? How can we get creative with some of the resources that we have here? Some of the people who have come out of the city to come back and give back to it so that we're able to inject funds in our schools district that doesn't interrupt the maintenance of effort. And in case you don't know what the maintenance of effort is, because I didn't know, it's basically when the Yonkers government or a government has to maintain the funds that it gave to the school district the previous year. So if I give you $300 million this year, next year, no matter what my finances look like, you know, my government finances look like, I have to give you no less than $300 million and, you know, 1 cent. I have to maintain that effort. And I think that's something that is a little frightening, right? Because we don't know we just watched the pandemic. We don't know what, finances start to look like, and people try to shy away from it. But how do we figure out how to get funds into our education without interrupting the maintenance of effort?
Before we go much further, I need to remind everyone that Yonkers Voice does not endorse or oppose any candidate. We invite all candidates to sit down so they can explain, they can talk about their vision, and they can tell you why they believe that they are the best person for that vote. When I mean we interview everybody, there is a few exclusions, but we're not going to go into that right now. But in majority of the time, everyone is welcome on Yonkers Voice, so they can talk about what is important, what they feel needs to be addressed. Now, you mentioned 3 things that are important to you. I'm going to mention a couple of things that are important to me, and I'm sure that are important to many people in Yonkers. And I want to see how you tackle those issues, and what is your vision on those. Homeless. crime. I was reading your bio, and on your bio, you talk about the people that you grew up with here in Yonkers. Well, many of those guys, girls, friends that you grew up with are no longer in Yonkers because it's becoming difficult to live in Yonkers.
Absolutely.
So let's talk about those two issues. How would you retain those people here where they grew up, generations, in their families here in Yonkers, and now are forced to leave our city because they can no longer afford to live in our city?
Absolutely.
So let's go with the homeless first.
Sure. So all three of the issues you just mentioned are equally as important to me. Homelessness, I know we hear it all the time. It's a county problem. It's a county issue. Let the county deal with it. And while technically, right, the county is the overseer as it relates to dealing with the homeless population, again, we have a responsibility as local government to partake in that. One thing I can think of right off the bat is, and you talked about people leaving the city, right? It has a lot to do with these luxury developments that's going up and not enough affordable units. Where are the community benefit agreements? If we're going to allow luxury buildings to come and build on our waterfront, is there a way for us to be able to get some resources from them to then curtail the homeless situation that we have? I don't think there's anything out there stopping Yonkers from pouring into or putting resources toward, curtailing homelessness. You also, go ahead.
No, go ahead, finish your thought. Yeah.
But that's just one idea, right? And that's just, I honestly hadn't mentioned that in any previous conversations, but it's to continue having your wheels turning, to get creative, to say, why can't we do this? Why can't we push back? Why can't we press a new button? Why does things have to be, it's just the way we've always done it? It doesn't have to be, and I hope that on the council I'm able to bring that.
Why can't we go after those that before they invested, they had a special deal, sweet deal, taxes and whatever, because of promises they made in order to acquire property. And once the property is acquired and they move in, they forget about all those promises. How do we go after them and say, listen, you promised this, and that. What's going on? Some people might say, what are you talking about? Well, specifically about the Yonkers jail by Alexander Street. When that property was sold, there were promises made. It's going to be an art gallery, this and that. I don't remember seeing any presentation, any demonstration, any gallery at that location. But they took the street. So how would you deal with those people that before they acquire, they make promises, they sign up deals, and once the deal is done, forget about it?
When you mention a situation like that, I think about transparency, right? Whether it be the jail or any other property that's being bought and sold in Yonkers, if there are particular things attached to their contract where they don't have to go in front of the council, they're able to just speak with the IDA, right? Do you know the IDA is appointed by the mayor? So a lot of those conversations we're not aware of. We don't know what those contracts look like. There's really no way for us, the people, to hold these sellers or these buyers accountable to what they promised us. The community benefits agreement that I just mentioned, if we had something like that attached to a lot of these sales, that would be something to hold people accountable. I'm really big on putting things in black and white. Like, I like to have conversations, I like to have meetings, but I also like to have action items, right? And things that are put in black and white so that you can hold people accountable. You can't hold people accountable to a conversation. You can't hold people accountable to a verbal promise, but you can hold people accountable to their contracts. You can hold people accountable, to the terms that they agreed upon, and that's really the most that you can do in those particular situations.
Shatika, with this redesign, remapping, whatever way name we want to give it to the redistricting. What will be or would be your district today if you were elected?
So the first district has changed. It actually reverted back to a design that was about 20 years ago. It had this very similar makeup. So the first district now goes from the Yonkers-Hastings borderline all the way down to the Bronx Yonkers borderline.
On Riverdale.
On Riverdale.
All the way down to Riverdale.
All the way down to Riverdale. So it covers all of the waterfront. and then it comes up, it comes in a couple of blocks. So, obviously it includes Hawthorne and Ludlow and, that area. But what they did with the district is essentially they made it longer and narrower. So it took away a lot of the project housing that was a part of the first district. So Slow Farm is no longer included. Whitney Young, which is, not project housing, but low-income housing, no longer included. That's essentially what they did with the first district, but they just reverted it honestly back to what it was about 20 years ago.
Lionsgate is now on your district.
Yes, I think it always was.
Oh yeah. But it's on your district.
Yeah.
Because before it wasn't, because Lionsgate did not exist.
Because it wasn't here, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
But now it is.
Yes.
So Lionsgate came to Yonkers, huge investment, whole bunch of studios.
Yeah.
Lots of jobs were supposed to be created. People were happy. Now we're going to be working right here in my town. Here, that's not so. Yes, some jobs created, but low-level jobs, janitors, low-level jobs.
Yeah.
Are you happy with what we see at Lionsgate? I don't want to badmouth them. I'm just asking you questions.
Right.
And remember, guys, the questions are not my questions. Those are questions that the people of Yonkers, the people who are watching us, are asking. Sometimes those questions have merit, sometimes they don't. So we're asking you, so you can give us your perspective, your vision into the issues.
Sure. So the first thing that I would think of, right, is has anybody had a conversation? Has any conversations taken place between the current council and Lionsgate to say, hey, you promised us X amount of jobs, we have a lot of constituents who've applied for these jobs and have not, they've not come to fruition. The other part of this is when Lionsgate was first thinking about coming, if I had any say into what it was they were bringing to the table, and I don't know if this currently exists, but this is just an idea that I have, is what about some type of trade or apprenticeship programs to be able to allow people to start at the low level, positions, but to work themselves up so that they become studio managers and, can take on the bigger titles. I think it all stems from communication and conversation. A lot of things get very clouded by politics and the craziness, and I can imagine that it's not an easy thing to juggle. I mean, I'm in it now, and I feel that it's not an easy thing to juggle. But it's important to keep in mind that we are representative government, and we represent an amount of people who are holding us accountable and who expect certain things. And it's important for us to deliver, and I think that starts with a conversation, and it can escalate from there.
I was at Lionsgate. I was invited for a walkthrough. I saw all the studios that are in existence now. I know they're building many additional studios. And I have to say something, in defense of, not defense because they don't need to be defended, but maybe something that the people don't know. They are having an apprentice program.
That's awesome.
Teaching young kids, the filming industry, operating cameras. So they are doing certain things for the community. So again, guys, those questions are not my questions. These are questions that, so the full.
And I would just say, it's great that you know that, Rue, because you had to walk through and you were able to find out about all that, right? But that goes back to my point about access and transparency. You're not going to sign up for an apprenticeship program at Lionsgate.
Yeah. Why not?
You might. Well, you said kids. You said it was for kids, but my point is that
kids, young at heart.
Oh, young at heart. That's all that matters, of course. My point is that the people who need to know that information, how do they access that information?
That's where you come into play.
Right.
That's the responsibility of our elected officials.
Absolutely. You said it.
Come to the community, do a town hall, and inform the people. And I think that is something that it's lacking.
Absolutely. You said it for me. I didn't have to even finish my statement.
So maybe you want to leave and say whatever I'm saying for Shatika. No, we're just making this interview relaxed and comfortable.
Absolutely.
Good point.
Yeah.
Crying, Shatika.
Yeah.
I feel so bad that I see young folks, 12, 13, 14, getting involved in some really bad stuff. Okay. When I say bad stuff, I'm not talking about stealing a magazine, a book, even though that is wrong, but I'm talking about serious crime. Stabbings, shooting, things like that.
Yeah.
And the people that do that, this is getting younger and younger. I remember covering the story on school, I think it's 13, 9, or somewhere on the Clean Avenue.
Okay.
kid, 9 years old, got caught with a handgun in school. Okay, so kids are getting younger and younger, and those crimes committed by them are getting stronger and stronger. What is your view on that? Is it society? Is it the parents? You know, and I don't want to talk about parents, single mothers, because look, I know so many single mothers that have done a wonderful job raising their kids. But somewhere, somehow, there's something broken.
So I want to point out to that statement that, right, we want to make sure that we don't identify what a child is doing, whether it be acting out in school or behaving violently, with the fact that a parent may not be doing a good job, right? When I hear you talk about violence and the kids getting younger and younger, I don't automatically think, oh, we need more policing. I don't automatically think the parents are horrible. I think that our kids are hurting. Our kids are hurting, they don't have outlets, and I think about a few things, right? I think about more guidance counselors in our schools, people that they can turn to. I think about more mental health services. I think about diversion activities, right? When I grew up in School Street. When I grew up in School Street, our after school program was right down the street, around the corner. We didn't have to leave, our circumference to be able to go and have an outlet, to dance, to play games, to go on trips, etc. I don't see that is currently in existence with any of our municipal housing complexes, right? So how do we bring those resources back so that kids have something to do aside from turn to guns and turn to gangs? People turn to those things because they're hurt. They turn to those things because they don't understand what's happening, and they turn to those things because they're looking for love, family, and acceptance from, what we see as the wrong things, but they're just trying to find an outlet. And so I think bringing those types of resources will definitely help curtail how we see younger and younger kids becoming more and more violent.
Shatika, I thought I was going to agree with you in everything you said until the interview was over. But unfortunately, I don't. Okay. And it's
That's
okay.
not unfortunate.
Yeah, well, and it's okay, guys. That's why I tell people all the time, nothing wrong with disagreeing. What's wrong is when you disagree and you lose respect for the other person. Disagree with respect. Yes, sometimes there is something wrong with those parents. When a mother has a weapon in the house and her son picks up that weapon and takes it to school, it's bad parenting. Okay, it's bad parenting. When we have school programs that are available to our kids, but we don't have kids because parents, regardless if it's a mother or father or guardian, when the kids are not in those programs because the parents are a little bit too lazy to take those kids to that program, yes, there's something wrong with those parents. Now, sometimes it's parents that they don't do that because they might be working. Maybe they're not available. I'm talking in general terms.
Well, I think you're talking about a specific subset of parents. So I would argue that there are more parents out here who's worried about putting food on the table, who's worried about keeping a roof over a child's head, who's making sure that they go to school with decent enough clothes that they're not getting bullied and beat on, right? That there's more parents that are preoccupied with that. And I'm not saying that is where their attention should be spent. I'm being what I hope to be, right, a representative for a lot of people that I know, that they are occupied with that and things fall through the cracks. I agree with you. Having a gun in a household with a young child is unacceptable, right? I 1000% agree. But I would say that there's a much smaller population of those parents than there are parents who are simply struggling day to day to make ends meet and therefore maybe ignoring their kids, not intentionally, but things may be slipping through the cracks.
And here we agree, yes, but we are not talking about those.
Okay.
We are talking about those parents that lack the discipline and they not handle the kids because they're busy doing things that are not as important.
Okay.
Look, I have been at the PAL, YWCA, YMCA, and one thing that I hear most of the time is we have programs, but we don't have kids to come to those programs. I have been at the PAL with Marisol doing interviews and telling parents, look, if the issue is money, you have no issue. Bring your kids here. Money should never be an issue for the kid not to have fun.
Right.
But somehow, not too many kids should.
Right.
Some should, I'm not saying nobody shows up.
Right.
But we need more involvement. My point is
Absolutely.
parents need to be more involved.
Right, and I agree with you. I think that is a great point, that parents do need to be more involved. And I would say, because this is an interview about me being a city council person, right? What can I do in my role as a city council person to involve more parents? I think one of the things we lack in general with organizations, I have an organization, as you know, Project Inspire Yonkers, and we see that a lot too, right? We'll have a program, we'll expect a bunch of turnout, and then the turnout is not as large. But rather than contemplate why a kid didn't come, or talk about how a parent didn't make sure that the kids came, I think one thing that we make sure to reflect on is like, what can we do better for the next event? What can we do better for the next program to make sure that kids get here? And I think one thing that we miss the mark on sometimes is meeting people where they are. Right? We expect people to have the capacity to meet us halfway, but that's not the reality of the society we live in. If there's a parent who's working more than one job, right, and maybe there's 2 kids in the house, and she's tasked the older one with taking care of the younger one, and so maybe that 13 and 14-year-old does want to come to the program, but they have to stay at home with their 9-year-old brother or sister until their mom gets off of work. And it gets, you understand what I'm saying? It gets very, very, very complex. And as elected officials, I think it's our job to dive deeper into those complexities and figure out where we can fill the gaps and the holes.
Now I'm going to give you the other side of the point.
Sure.
You just said, well, I'm running for council. I'm going to give you the other side.
Sure.
Everything is important. Even if I ask you a question about District 10,
yeah.
Doesn't exist. It's just an example. Okay? It's just an example. Your answer might be important because when I vote, when my friends vote, very often they don't vote based on understanding the issue. Does this person understand? Does it? No. They vote based on, can Shatika relate to me?
Absolutely.
Does Shatika understand what my priorities are? Does she understand that the issue in my district or in Yonkers is quality of life?
Yeah.
Does she understand that they're not coming down here to pick up my garbage?
Right.
Does she understand that when I go to put garbage out, it's rats all over the place?
Right.
So you gain my vote because I understand that you understand my problems.
Absolutely.
Right?
Yeah.
So in quality of life, tenants, landlords, especially in your district, they have a problem sometimes with heat, quality, living quality. They call in the city. Sometimes not much is being done. I just heard a couple of weeks ago they implemented a database where you can go there and look up. But some people say, look, we called up, every time the inspector comes up, things are fixed, or we think that maybe they are telling the landlord when the inspectors are coming.
Okay.
I'm not saying that.
Okay.
I'm not saying. I have no basis to say that is what happened.
Okay.
I'm just saying what people are saying.
Okay.
Are you happy with this database? Because it's going to help. So if it works the way it's designed to work, it's going to help a lot of people.
I agree.
In your district.
I agree.
The question is, will they handle the repairs, fix the things?
Yeah. So I'm familiar with the database because I know Councilwoman Isaac has been advocating for it for a long time, and although there's been some setbacks, it was able to become live. And I think it provides an opportunity, the same way it provides to homeowners, for people and car buyers, right? People to get a Carfax on their apartments, right? To see if their landlords have had certain violations, to see, if they're pending, if they've been approved, etc. But I think that the database, as it relates to like tenant landlord issues, is only one piece of the pie, right? So as you were speaking, I started thinking about how it's important for us to work. It's not just important for me to work within a silo and to talk directly to the residents. It's important for me to work with the partners around me. You mentioned, being able to relate to District 10, which doesn't exist, but being able to have that conversation, right? Councilwoman Isaac represents District 2, and although I would be representing the 1st District, she created that registry, and it would be important for me to have conversation with her if there were any issues that came about, like the ones you were, speculating or mentioning. I also think, again, that's just one check off of how we start to fix our landlord-tenant issues. Our Department of Housing and Buildings is horrible. I have been working in constituent services for the last 5 years for Legislator Christopher Johnson, and I've had so much trouble with people who have talked about electrical issues, who want their apartments inspected, who are waiting for appointments that never take place, etc. I think that there needs to be real reform in our Department of Housing and Buildings. And I'm not in there. I'm not in there yet, so I don't know where the problem lies exactly, but I do think that we need to take a hard look at our Department of Housing and Buildings to figure out what is going on there. In addition to that, talking about a well-rounded fix of an issue, right? Legislator Christopher Johnson recently got put in our county budget, working with our county partners, a program called LTAP. So during the pandemic, landlords were able to use the excuse that they couldn't make repairs, if your boiler broke, if something was not fixed, funds were short and low, people were late on their rent, etc. There's a program by the county that allows a landlord with 8 units or less to apply for $25,000 grant, which means you do not have to pay it back, per unit. So in essence, you can get $200,000 if you have an apartment complex that's 8 units to do the repairs, right? So we have government working together. We have you applying for a grant. Oh, there is one catch though with the grant. You have to keep the units affordable. And that's why I love that grant, because it also benefits the residents. So you get $200,000, you're able to fix the boiler, do a new paint job, do the outside of the building over, etc. And you're able to make those repairs. Those are now, right? Those repairs and violations are now repaired and can be translated into the registry that Company that Isaac put together. So you see that, oh, they have violations for these things, but last month they were able to get them all fixed, right? And now tenants, myself or whomever else that may be looking, can go on, see those, and live in a place that's comfortable. That's government working together, and that's what we need more of.
Does that mean that if I get that grant,
Yep.
the landlord
Yep.
fixes the apartment, then next year he cannot raise the rent because he said he made improvements to the building?
It has to be proven improvements to the building, but yes.
But can he raise the rents
No.
because he made improvements, even though those improvements were not made with his money, were made with it?
With the county grant money, that's the purpose of the grant, absolutely.
No, okay.
Yep.
Now, guys, before we go further and I start getting texts, where you live, there is no 10 district in Yonkers. I know that. There was just an example because I didn't want to say district this or that and that, because then I would get another set of complaints. Why did you mention my district? So
I get it.
I have to cover everything.
I get it.
I try. Sometimes I don't succeed.
Okay.
Social injustice.
Okay.
I know that is something that you take to heart, and it's something that it's important to you.
Yes, it is.
And we see it often that most of the time, not all the time, Shatika, the victims of social injustice are people of color.
Absolutely.
Now, some people might say that I'm making a racial statement. I don't think I am. I think I'm making a statement
Statement of facts.
of the facts.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, well, I do know that in Yonkers, we have not had any serious social injustice case. I don't know if it's just a matter of time or it's just a matter of ignorance of my part. You probably know more about that than I.
I probably do.
Please.
I would say first that serious is subjective, right, to the individual that's experiencing it. So although we may not have seen a George Floyd or a Trayvon Martin happen in the city of Yonkers, it does not necessarily mean that we haven't had any, serious incidents between police officers in the community. As you mentioned, social justice is something that I'm passionate about. I worked on Capitol Hill in DC for about 6 months for the very Institute of Justice, and a lot of the issues that they fight for, be it immigrant protection or other social justice issues, was something that I worked on, and so I've always had a passion for it. In addition to that, I grew up in the projects, right? So I'm no stranger to police altercations, or I wouldn't say altercations, to police communication with individuals, and how some individuals may feel slighted by the way police have handled them. I have a lot of opinions about police officers, but I'm not an expert, and there's still a lot more that I need to learn. I would say one thing that I can think of that would help that is community policing, having people, not just people that look like you. I want us to get away from, being identifying with people just because they look like us, and they're a person of color, so they gotta feel me, they gotta understand me. That's not necessarily the case. I'm talking about community policing where those people grew up in the same conditions and circumstances and the same city as you, and so when you are approached by them, there's a level of tension that is erased. I know that personally from my own personal experiences. Whether an officer is just trying to get around me and I'm scared they're about to pull me over, right? I, as a black woman, have a lot of thoughts that go through my head. And I think that if I'm in my city and I know that my officers are people who I can easily say hello to and who I'm not intimidated by, that when that police officer lights go off, I'm not going to be, so shooken up,
Yeah. Anything that I say is not necessarily a statement of facts. Okay, I'm making certain statements based on questions that I have received. I'm not implying one way or the other. This interview is about the candidate, so she can tell us how she sees those things, how she would address it, what is her vision.
Yeah.
What do we need to do? You just said we never had, and hopefully we will never have, a George Floyd situation here in our city.
Mm-hmm.
It will happen. What do you think we need to do to prevent something like that from happening in Yonkers? Look, we have Stop and Shake, we have coffee with the cop, we have pizza with the cop, we have whatever with the cop.
Yeah.
But is that something that is really effective? Do we have a matrix that will say, okay, those programs are great, but are they working? You know my first name, but when you go to my neighborhood, do you treat me with respect that I deserve? Yeah. Or you just shaking my hands in a coffee in a McDonald's because it's the right thing to do?
Yeah. So like I said before, I'm not an expert on any of these topics. I know from my lived experience, I know from family and friends, and I know from conversations that I've had and been a part of working in government. One thing that I will like to say is that I was recently made aware of the city of Yonkers hiring a diversity officer to do diversity training within city government. And there was a call that we had. It was one of these community meetings where the woman who was on there spoke, and she mentioned that this is the first time that some of these people were receiving these trainings and doing this diversity, this deep dive into diversity and how to understand the complexities of the diversity that we live amongst. And so I don't know what's happening in that regard within the police department. I know that I've heard numbers where our police department, and I've heard stories, right, from the people who've been here for a long time about how things used to be much worse than they are now. And that's not to say that things are perfect, but I think that we have to give credit when it's due. And if there are things that are working, let's continue to do those. But let's look around to best practices around the country where people are doing different things and see if those are some things that we can implement here. I think, like you mentioned, the coffee with the cop and the Stop and Shake, shout out to Hector, is great. But I think, as you also mentioned, it's a multifaceted approach. It's not just about those surface level, do you know my name conversations. It's do you know how to interact with a black person?
Look, I need to give kudos to my Yonkers Police Department. I think they're pretty good. I've been living in Yonkers for 40 years, and I remember how it used to be back then when we had Commissioner Fernandez and others, and we had other police officers that were not so kind. But things are changing. And I have interviewed all police commissioners in the last 15 years or so. And they all have said something in common. We are not perfect, but we struggle to be perfect, or to be the best that we can be. Have I personally had some encounters with police officers that could be handled a little better? Yes, I have. Could they have those encounters be a lot worse? Yes, they could. So many people in the community speak about sensitivity training, communication training, how to communicate, engage, the things that you are saying with the community. I think we have room for improvement.
Absolutely.
Even though we're pretty good.
we always have room for improvement, right? And every conversation we've had in the last 20 minutes or so, we've talked about populations of people where there are smaller populations who miss the mark, right? Who let things fall through the cracks. We talked about the parents having the guns in the home. We talked about the few encounters you may have had with a few, let's call them bad apples of officers. But that doesn't mean that as a whole we're not making progress. Baby steps are better than no steps. And as long as we can recognize that while we're making progress, we need to push harder and further and more, I think that's the most that you can, ask for out of the people that are working on these issues.
In your district, there is another big problem, opioid. You go in this corner, you go in that corner, and I go on site and see what's going on. As a matter of fact, this morning I went to a site that a car crash, multiple cars hit, not in your district, and with a person that appeared to be overdosed. But I don't need to go to that side of Yonkers. I can see that right here in Gary Square. Opioid, it's a serious problem.
Right.
Not just affecting them, affecting children. Okay. How would you address those? What could you do? I know that that's not just the job of a council person, but it's a problem, and will be affecting your district. It's an issue.
Absolutely. I only sigh like that because I need to know more about the issue. If I'm being honest, I don't know enough about. I know, right, some of the stuff that we all know, how people get hooked on certain drugs and how one small thing could lead to this, larger problem that they have. But that's really the extent of what I know as it relates to drug addiction. I would love to talk with some of our mental health some of our substance abuse professionals and figure out what we can do or what we can implement to be able to, curtail some of that. I don't know enough on the subject, and thank you for bringing it to my attention so that I can learn more.
Shatika, we have to end this interview soon.
Oh,
we could be going on and on and on.
I can talk all day.
Yeah.
I'm talking.
But I want you to take this opportunity to speak with those that are watching. Okay, I want you to tell them about the kick-off parties. How can they support you?
Absolutely.
Okay, signature collections coming up.
Absolutely.
Okay, all those things that you feel you need to address that I might not have asked you.
Absolutely. So thank you for taking the time to watch this interview if you have. My website is parkerforyonkers.com, and that's where you can get most of the information that you need. As we mentioned, signatures are coming up. February 28th is the kickoff. And so from that day forward, me and my team will be knocking on your doors, asking for your support if you are a Democrat to sign and help me to get on the ballot. I'm actually right in the middle of doing what I call community conversations, where I'm going all across the district into community buildings, or really anybody who would have me, and inviting residents down to speak with me, ask me the hard questions, push back against some of my ideas, so that this campaign is really reflective, again, of the residents of the city of Yonkers. Because I know my problems are one thing, and they may be similar to somebody's, but they may not be exact. And so I want to hear from you guys, so I hope you'll join me on my community conversations. The next one is actually tomorrow at 43 Ashburton from 11 a.m. to 2 p.m. And then the following one is going to be on Monday, February 20th at 160 Warburton from 5 p.m. to 7 p.m. So I hope to see you guys there. If you want to donate, again, that's on my website, parkerforyonkers.com. And if you want to follow me and keep up with me on Instagram, it's my name, Shatika Parker, SHATIKAPARKER.
Shatika said that her and her team are going to be going around. I'm going to correct her. If you want to be part of her team, go to her website and ask how.
Yeah, absolutely. I appreciate that. Thank you. Yeah. The team needs to grow, so come on.
I'm going to ask you one more question, but I'm going to reverse this.
Sure.
Let's say I am Shatika.
Okay.
You are Ru. I want you to ask me a hard question to Shatika.
A hard question to Shatika. And you're going to answer it?
I'll let you know.
Okay. A hard question
What would you ask me?
to Shatika.
I am Shatika.
Yeah. All right, so if I'm thinking about subject-wise, what's hard for me, it's stuff that I'm still learning, is about the environment. So what will you do to help climate crises? Because I'm still learning about climate change and stuff like that. So that's a hard one for me. That's one.
Okay, that's it. I give you one.
Okay, did you answer?
No, you are.
What? I just told him I'm still learning. I mean,
You should have thought about it before I told you.
This is a good opportunity because Groundwork Hudson Valley a few years ago did this study, right? So I grew up in School Street. They did this study and they came up with this heated looking map about air density and how you're affected when you live in more dense populations and how you're not affected if you live in places with more trees and more sky, etc. And that's actually what got like my wheels turning about learning more. Because if I'm being honest, right? Like if you are black and brown, you live in the projects, like the climate is the last thing on your mind. Like you're thinking about so many things. You're not thinking about the fact that it's 65 degrees in the wintertime and where all that.
They give you these plans that you gotta go to college to understand.
Right, exactly. And they want you to learn all these hard terms. But Groundwork Hudson Valley, I will find the link and post it on my Instagram. They did this really cool study, created this heated map about air density and how that affects quality of life. And the first district, the second district also, is very dense population, so it really relates to us. And that's as much as I know about climate and how it affects the first district, and the fact that I want us to have pretty parks and for the dogs to be able to play and stuff like that. But I'm still learning about climate.
And that's the answer. Well, Shatika, is there anything else you want to mention? Or you feel happy that we touched on all the subjects?
I feel happy. Follow me on Instagram. I don't know if you can tell from today, but I'm a talker. I talk. I like to be transparent, open about the campaign.
We can see that.
Because we're over here competing. Shatika Parker on Instagram. Follow me and learn more as we go along the campaign trail. Thank you, guys.
As always, guys, Yonkers Voice does not endorse or oppose any candidate. This is the platform where you all can sit down and talk to the community. This is not my voice, this is your voice amplified. Yes, there is exclusions on who comes here, but we leave that for another day. Guys, thank you. Don't forget to support us. Don't forget to share this interview on your own pages so people can hear where Shatika stands for on subjects. So that's the type of stuff that we wish you would share. Forget about that bad stuff that we put out. The positive, motivational stuff.
Absolutely.
So make sure that you share, support, and if she is the right person for the job, make sure you vote for her. Your vote counts, your vote matters. Thank you, until next time. Before we kick off, tomorrow, guys, we have Anthony Cruz, which was one of the kids that won the second place in this national, athletic running.
Oh yeah.
He's going to be on tomorrow. Okay.
Cool.
So don't forget to tune in. Let's support these young folks. Let's put the spotlight on them. Let's motivate them with actions, not words. Thank you. Until then.